Let's blow this up.
Look alive, Bomb Squad. We are back for another installment of Let's Blow This Up. I'm your host, Jason Sircone, and tonight we're going to talk about growing a successful podcast agency. And there's a lot that goes into that, believe me. And of course, as these live streams always go, I can't do it alone. And since I haven't had the full story of growing a successful podcast agency, I know I am on track and en route, but I don't want to have this conversation and try to figure this all out on my own. So I'm joined tonight by the one and only Emily Page of Stories and Strategies Podcast Production. Emily, welcome to Let's Blow This Up.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome. So we're going to let the Bomb Squad know. If you're out watching us live, of course, as always, please drop comments, drop questions. We'd love to have your interactiveness as part of our live stream. But this is Emily's very first podcast / live stream appearance.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. And please, I'm asking the audience to please be nice, because we're going to make this fun. We're going to have a great time, as we talked about before we went live, Emily. And as I said, you've got a pretty incredible story as to how you've gotten into your position at Stories and Strategies. And for our loyal listeners and viewers, that name may sound familiar. We kicked off season 3 here in the Livestream series with Doug Downs, your partner at Stories and Strategies. So getting to know Doug, getting to know you and your story, I love how this all came together. So let's kick things off with that. Let's hear about what made you first look at getting into podcasting, but ultimately how you've been able to take such a big leap and get to where you're at today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to be honest. I started out as a virtual assistant, and before I had even applied to the job, I didn't even really consider a career or a future in podcasting. I wasn't too familiar with the industry itself, but I applied, got the job, and I just was constantly learning new things. I was so eager and driven to just get my hands on anything that I could because a passion was genuinely building inside of me. And from there, it skyrocketed to now I am full-time and a partner of the company. So it's been a huge opportunity, and I'm so blessed for it. So that's how I got here.
So how did that partnership opportunity come along so fast? And what made you realize that this was the right move to make at this juncture of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, a lot of people and it did go by fast. I feel like the partnership did come by fast, but I feel like the passion just felt like everything fit right into place. I felt like this is where I was meant to be. And like a couple months in, maybe not even, I just knew that like this is where I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I obviously shared my passions or expressed my feelings to my partner. And he could like feel the passion as well. I feel like it was kind of like radiating off of me. And with that, I think just as I took on more responsibilities, he just saw that I was serious and this is, where I want to be. And he
Mm-hmm.
saw that, the company had a future with me in it, and I vice versa. So that's how we got there.
Well, kudos to Doug, because clearly he's created an environment that's very welcoming. And obviously you've been able to jump in with both feet and do a lot of great things. So we're going to unpack building the agency. And in the early stages of the game, you came into this, obviously, just learning everything from scratch, just trying to figure out the best way to move forward. Give me the time frame here. So how long are you talking from the time that you started to where you are now? How long has this timeline been?
It's been 2 years since
2
I started
years.
with Story. Yeah.
Okay. So from where you started to where you are now, obviously you've had your hands on many podcasts. You've probably taken in tons of audio, tons of video at this point. What have you seen change? What are some of the things that when you first got started, you thought, wow, this is cool, but now you've seen it evolve so far from that original inception that you first saw?
I'm gonna say our clients genuinely. I feel like we grow with them. So I think over the span of being at the company, seeing them grow and evolve and, kind of form around, industry trends or new like software coming out, new technology kind of thing. Like they have grown and it's been just a blessing to watch that, and seeing that is inspiring. So that's also goes hand in hand why I love to be here, is just because I feel like the inspiration is just everywhere.
Mhm.
So I would say that would be the biggest thing that I see change is my clients. But yeah, I think our clients.
I think there's something to that for sure. And I see that as well. A lot of what I've discovered and I got to enjoy is that initial hurdle of, man, podcasting. I don't know. Let me see. Okay. I trust what you're telling me. I'll see what I can do. And then once there's actual content live, the process is done. They've got something they could actually hold in their hands. They could share with their people. It's this amazing transformation just in the overall mindset of what this can do for themselves and for their brand. And
Absolutely.
watching someone walk down that path and truly get to experience what a good podcast and a good conversation with someone on the other side of the mic can bring into their life, that's special. And that's something to where maybe I don't want to get too we got the full house moral moment already kicking off in the first 6-7 minutes of our conversation. But to me, that's big. And when someone can feel that, that's what I believe makes them say, you know what, I think I found something that I can really lean into. And watching that evolution to me makes all of this work worth it.
Oh, I could not agree more. I think too, like, what am I trying to say here? Just things, especially a lot of our clients, like we've, some have come on that have already started their podcast, and some are brand new. They're wanting to start a podcast, and whether that's, like a passion project or if that's for their brand, I feel like we work really, really hard to, push the growth and work with them, tailor their plans. So seeing that all like come to life is so fascinating. And we are very, what's my word? Sorry.
That's
We're
fine.
very driven with our analytics too. Like we don't just pump out episodes. We
Yeah.
genuinely, we do the digging, we do the research, we see what's working and what's not, and we bring that back to them, and then we grow more from that.
Mhm.
And I think that's really special.
Yeah, and that takes a special level of TLC. I know a lot of people that are in agencies or just doing that freelance work. A lot of it's just churn out as much content as possible, throw it at the wall, see what sticks. I
Oh
firmly
yeah.
believe in developing that strategy. And I'm not a big numbers guy. I do believe that you can learn from your numbers, but I'm sure this is something that you've experienced as well, Emily. Many people come into this thinking that massive numbers are just a few episodes away. And all I need to do is go live, and then Joe Rogan will be calling me, and I'll be on his level. And it just doesn't work that way. And what I always make people realize is that Joe Rogan's on a 20 plus year path right now. So
Yeah.
strap in if that's where you want to get to.
Exactly.
But but getting that understanding on the front end of what do you really want to accomplish, and then developing the mindset that makes you realize you don't need to have millions and millions of listeners to truly be successful. It's all about positioning your content for the goals that you've set for yourself. And if you focus on that, that's going to keep you invested in building something special, thus wanting to bring you back to produce the next episode and the next episode, because you're constantly making good connections that will lead to that growth over time.
Oh yeah, and another like kind of misconception too with the numbers is, everyone, at least when you're just getting started, and I'm sure still like people who, are successful and have grown a lot with their podcast, they focus a lot on the download numbers, and that's not necessarily what is gonna show that you're growing.
Mhm.
You could have like sorry, I'm getting my
Yeah.
words all mixed up. Um, like what we want to focus on is the hours listened,
Yeah.
just there's automatic downloads that, obviously take place, especially on Apple Podcasts. And with
Mhm.
that, I mean, it does require the 60-second listen. But I think everyone is so focused on the downloads, but you could have 100 people, okay, listen to 1,000 hours, okay, or you could have 1,000 people listen to like 100 hours. So it's quality over quantity here. So I think when you're looking at the numbers, you want to actually understand what you're looking at and why they're important and what will measure your growth.
That what you just said, Emily, is spot on, and I feel that's what makes an agency successful and retains clients longer, is helping them understand that very point. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. Now, as you continue to build, you may decide you want to do more episodes simply because you're seeing return from the initial quantity. Okay, well, let's up this just to continue building. But at the same time, that's not what's going to dictate your real success. Your real success is going to come from creating something that grabs somebody's attention, keeps their ass in the seat, teaches them exactly what they showed up for, or entertains them, whatever your content is based around. But even if you were to have 100 listeners to a specific episode, you don't know who's in that audience. You don't know. Somebody might be like working for the biggest person in the world, who, I mean, name whoever it might be, or someone in your industry hears this content and says, hey, I've got an opportunity for you. You don't need to have a huge audience for that to happen. But if you don't take the time to create that content and continue building upon your project, you're never going to get that experience. So it's understanding all of this that really makes for that full-blown experience of taking podcasting and really making it a key part of your brand.
Absolutely. And even back to the whole 100 hours or 100 people listening to 1,000 hours, those 100 people, they're the people that are going to, go to a coffee shop and tell their friend about you. They're going to talk about you over dinner or, a quick phone call. And those references, or not even references, but recommendations, are so much more valuable than, just, seeing an ad. Sometimes, ads are they work very, very well, but it's so valuable to have those one-to-one recommendations,
Yeah, in a digital world, we are still very driven by peer recommendations, and we could get bombarded by an ad 100 times because we stop to watch it, and then they retarget the crap out of us, and we still don't take action. But then a friend says, "Oh, hey, did you hear about so and so, or did you listen to XYZ podcast?" "Oh yeah, I saw an ad about that. Did you like it?" "Oh, I loved it." "Okay, cool. Now I'm going to go listen." And that's usually when the ad stops because the phone's listening to you, and now they know, okay, we've got you. We'll show you some other shit. But overall, you're right, Emily. That's incredibly important. You got to keep that word of mouth going. And the more that you plant the right ideas in someone's mind by walking them through the process and helping them understand how things are developing, that's going to help them make that content that then when people listen to it, they're engaged. Now, I'll go back to Podcast Movement 2021. Tom Webster did a keynote presentation, and his big point, and this was my number one takeaway from the whole event, was to make your content recommendable, but make it recommendable to just one person. All you need is for one person in your audience to tell someone else, and then they can tell somebody else, and then they can. So now exponential growth is in place. That's huge. That's huge. But instead of getting consumed with hitting this enormous audience that isn't really there, talk to that one person that has arrived and really make them feel valued by giving them the content they deserve. And then from there, sky's the limit.
Oh, exactly. And just like it's organic, right? And like I feel like in a world right now where everything seems so ingenuine and so like we were talking about earlier, so with social media, like nothing seems real anymore. So those peer recommendations, they're gonna help you. And like you said, exponential growth is just gonna skyrocket from there because it's genuine and we don't feel that a lot anymore. It's
I'll tell
definitely...
you. Oh, it's crazy. You're right. No, I mean that to me, that this is why I love podcasting so much. Or not just why. I have so many reasons. The list is as long as my right leg. But one of the right, like I know we can sit here and just rattle off all the things we love. This and we'll be done before we know it. But I love the fact that this is genuine. You and I are. I mean, we've talked through email, but this is our first interaction in person. And we're sitting here just having a great conversation like I would do if I met someone at a networking event and we decided to go have a cup of coffee. And that to me is what drives life. It's the relationships. It's getting to know somebody and discovering ways that you can work with one another, whether you're maybe just going to be friends and maybe pass a couple business contacts back and forth, whatever the case may be. You never know unless you get into this genuine environment where you can get to know somebody. And if that's in a world of AI bullshit, if that's what's front of mind for people, it becomes so much harder to get those type of interactions. So I value these live streams every week when I get to have my co-host collective conversations with my friends there. These are genuine conversations, and those stand out in today's world.
Oh, absolutely. That's what's good. You're just going to drive more, or drive more listeners or watchers to come, because it's not, you don't feel that as often. And I think, with podcasting, I think that also brings in, that sense of intimacy and authenticity. We can feel it in episodes, So if there are, episodes that you're listening to where you genuinely feel like you are there. I know the podcasts I listen to, I like talk to them. Like I'm laughing with them.
Right.
It feels so real. So that's what we just need to like promote, I feel like, to just encourage the industry to just remain authentic and get rid of some of the, the AI podcasts.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about how you can responsibly use AI here in a moment. But I want to piggyback on what you just said, Emily, because it's incredibly poignant. That authenticity and that intimacy that you have with a podcast. And if you are consumed by a specific show, you're trapped, that's a bad word. If you're brought into the show by the host and what they have to say, or the fact that they have great conversations with their guests, there's something there that keeps you locked in. And the more that you are listening to that show, you're developing that emotional investment. And I know when you think of television characters, when I think of television characters, there's always the characters that you get emotionally invested into. And then if something bad happens to them, you're like, oh my God, you feel like a family member was just taken from you because you're so invested in what that person is bringing into your world. You have a great opportunity with your podcast to connect with somebody for a longer period of time in a very short form world. And what I mean by that is we are typically consumed by short form reels and TikTok videos and Instagram posts that usually deliver whatever they're meant to deliver in a quick minute or less. But if someone's choosing to listen to you on your podcast, they are committing 15, 20, 30, 60 minutes, or even longer in some cases, to you and to what you're delivering. That is intimate time. And if they are committing that time, you know you're doing something right. And now you have an obligation, this is how I see it, to continue bringing value to that person. Because if you don't, you're going to lose them. Because someone else will get their attention if you start giving them crap. But that's so powerful in today's world when the majority of time we're looking at short form content. Podcasts stand out in that authentic realm, but they give you this opportunity to make a powerful connection, and that could last a lifetime. I sound over dramatic there, but I think that's very true.
No, you're absolutely right. And I too, like, back with social media, with reels and TikToks, our attention span is just like diminishing, so
crap.
Being able to like hook somebody in and lock them in for, like you said, 15 minutes to an hour, that is so valuable. Take advantage of that and, use that to its full potential. You're building relationships, you're building a community, and your growth is you're gonna just skyrocket, like I said before. So I think it's pretty cool that, you can just lock people in for that time, given the scroll content is so fast paced. So
and you get a chance to elaborate on stories that in a short form world, you're only going to be able to deliver a snippet of. Here, we can explore ideas, we can talk about them in more detail, and we know that we have the attention of the people that are joining us, whether they're watching us live or they're checking out the audio replay of this podcast. They are here because they obviously like what we have to say. And as we continue to move forward, we owe it to our audience to continue having a conversation that delivers value and makes them feel like they've invested their time wisely. I'm all for that. I hope you are too.
Oh, I am too. Oh, of course I am. Of course I am.
Because we're just getting this party started. So, as I said a few moments ago, we were going to come back to this. We know AI is a big part of podcasting now. It's a big part of our lives. AI is everywhere. As we sit and talk this evening, I know I just saw an ad or a commercial or something from Mark Zuckerberg saying they made a standalone Meta AI app now. So add that to the other pile of AI apps that are out there, right? Like, again, it's everywhere. And I get it. This is the next big thing. It's here. How are you and everyone at your agency implementing AI into your practices?
So we will implement AI in different ways. So we can implement it in like to help our efficiency for sure. Cause I think that's kind of, the point of, generative AI is to just increase your productivity or your efficiency. So we'll use it in ways that, don't take away like our passion and our effort and our like, the whole purpose of why we're doing it. I feel like we push everybody to be real and raw. Like we don't want to do that ourselves. So when it comes to, any like writing or editing or building like social media promos, like we implement it in ways that still feel real because we obviously don't want to give any other message, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and that's where I think the general rule on AI is that it's a tool and you have to treat it as such. If you're leaning into it for everything, that could get dangerous. That's a slippery slope. That was I remember having a conversation in the earlier days, at least in regards to AI entering into my world, talking with one of my friends about how, well, if we aren't putting anything original out there and everybody's just pulling from AI, isn't it all just going to implode in on itself like a neutron star or like a dying star? Like, what are we going to do then? And I don't think the internet works that way. There's obviously a ton of content out there, but there's still a lot to say for originality, for creativity. Again, going back to what we were saying about the power of podcasting, why I love this medium so much is we now have tools at our disposal to where we can take this conversation that we're having, transcribe it, and then pull chunks of that conversation, put that into ChatGPT, for example, and then with very specific prompts, say, take my words and turn them into a social media post, into an email for my audience, into a blog post. Now this content that we are spilling into the microphone, it's still original because we are authentically bringing our conversation to life as you and I sit here. But then we can repurpose that content using AI tools to simplify our life a little bit, but still create content that touches our current audience, our hopeful soon to be here audience, customers, whoever, in a very special way. So to me, that's how we can use it to work smarter, not harder. And at the same time, not be unoriginally just churning out ChatGPT drivel.
Oh, exactly.
Exactly. With the word delve throughout
it. For sure. Even like now, it's really fascinating. Like I said before we got on here, it's kind of scary, like how fast paced it is, but it is fascinating. Like I won't lie. But there's now like AI like video editing tools, and for some of our clients, we're extremely honest when like with the tools or with whatever we use generative AI for, and we'll tell them like, we can pump out some videos for you, but they'll be AI generated, just letting you know. And they're good. It's good stuff. Like it's really good stuff, I would say, and like I even touched on before, like we're so passionate about our quality, we wouldn't pump out anything that wasn't up to our standard, I feel like. So there's definitely ways that we implemented that, like you said, work smarter, not harder. So yeah.
No, I don't think there's any shame in it. And I'm fully transparent, letting my clients know that I use AI. But that's the thing. Like, I think now we've gotten to a point where everybody's like, well, yeah, duh. Why wouldn't you? Because they're using it too. And everybody's finding and realizing, like, again, if you use it responsibly, it's really going to help a lot of the tasks that you'll spend hours and sometimes even days on get done in a matter of minutes. It's pretty crazy. And like you said, it's slightly scary, But again, I kind of think it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
I'll take it.
right, yeah. I mean, when I think about the times when I used to have to sit and write every single blog post from scratch, now I just take my words and take the transcription and get that generated for me, and I can crank out multiples in a matter of minutes. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, well, and it's cool too because it can over time, like within, I don't know what like specific platform you use, but within like ChatGPT and other ones, of course, you can build your own GPTs. So it
Right.
can get used to your language and you can tell it to speak like you. So
Mm-hmm.
it still feels original it's because especially because it's coming exactly right from your video, your transcript. It still feels very real and genuine because it sounds just like you, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not taking you hours to pump out. So,
Absolutely right. Anything to get some of our time back. I know that we're all for that. So, Emily, as we talked about, this is your very first podcast appearance. Get ready for your very first podcast question from Mr. Jim Rudolph. He asks, what is your best advice for someone interested in starting a podcast?
I'd say my best advice for somebody starting a podcast is understanding that it's not a sprint. Like this is a marathon. When you see everywhere like all these podcasts are just being like they're coming out of everywhere. I feel like it's definitely a trend right now like for, everyone on social media is having a podcast. Great. But they make it look so easy.
Mhm.
And, for a lot of us that are just starting out, they're just building, it's just an idea. There's a lot of planning that does go into it. And it does take a while to see numbers, to see return. So just understand that it's a marathon, but if you're passionate and you're driven, that is what's going to make you successful. And just keep pushing yourself to be authentic as we've been talking about and be true to you. And I think that will the story will unfold there. But yeah, so just understand that. And yeah, I think that's the biggest key point. Like even sometimes I'll stop rambling in a
You're
second.
fine.
There's
You're doing great.
sometimes where we'll have meetings with potential clients, and there will be times where we steer them away because they think it's like, okay, next week I'm gonna be up here with Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, not
Temper those
not
expectations a
very
bit.
likely. Yeah, so let's tone it down. So there are times where we steer people away, but Jim, if you are passionate, I would just say keep on hustling and get to there's no finish line, but keep striving for it.
Yeah.
And Jim, I believe you're Doug's friend, so it's nice to see you pop in here.
And Jim, you asked Emily directly, but I will piggyback on her answer by saying that we live in a very highlight reel driven culture. So we often see, like Emily said, what looks like everybody's just doing it so well and they're doing it with such ease, but they've been doing it for how many years? We don't know that. We don't typically get
Mhm.
to see behind the curtain to see the blood, the sweat, and the tears. But I
Mhm.
think that if you focus more on your mission and your passion and what you truly want to accomplish, then you're going to make it far. And if you stay committed to what you're building, then good things will happen. Jim says, thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Jim.
So, Bomb Squad, anybody else out there, if you have questions like Jim, thank you, Jim, for being part of the show. And if anybody else out there has some questions for Emily, please drop them in the comments. We'll make sure we get them addressed here on our show. So, let's talk production. And I know this is a big part
Yes.
of your role at Stories and Strategies. What are some of the keys to good production that you've discovered that you're able to impart? Because I will say for me, I'm big on efficiency. What can we do to make this the most efficient production possible? And that comes from planning and having a good idea of what type of content we want to create before we ever press record. What are some of the practices that you've implemented at your firm?
Yeah, I would say we really can't stress enough the importance of good sound design. So, it starts right from, we do a technical test before every recording, or at least we try to get those done before every recording when they're available.
Mhm.
And with that, we'll work with them to have the best sound possible. And taking that extra, 15 minutes to make sure they have good sound is going to save us because, if they have terrible sound quality, for the most part, we are able to clean it up and make it sound, beautiful. But there are times that, it's just, it's helpless.
Mhm.
And I would say that, that first 15 minutes of making, ensuring that, it sounds good, that will carry out into, editing, into, the YouTube video that we produce, into the social media content that we produce. Because if you get to that editing chunk and you realize that you can't do any of this, you're going to have to probably re-record that entire episode, which pushes back everything, all of
Mhm.
your workload, your productivity. So I would say that would be for sure number one. But I think I play around with so many different tools, so I feel like I don't have one specific one that I'd be like, this one is just totally saved my life, because they're all extremely helpful and they definitely boost our productivity.
Yeah.
But I would say video editing, social media editing, real stuff, that is what has really helped increase efficiency and productivity, I would say.
Yeah, I like what you said about having that front end check, because like you said, you can fix things in the end, but it just makes it so much easier if you don't have to. So
Oh
being
my
more
gosh, yes.
proactive than reactive is going to make life so much easier for your editing team. And taking that extra time doesn't it's not that much time. So
No, and nobody likes to listen to poor, sound quality.
right.
I noticed the podcast that I listen to, I can tell when you're in a hotel room. You're
Yeah.
on Zoom, you're on vacation. I still like the episode, but I'm like, I don't know. I know there's still you know, passion that goes into it, but for some reason I just don't really like it. And a lot of people
Yeah.
are the same way. And we want our clients episodes to do well, so we start from the top to ensure that.
Yeah, and man, I'll tell you, we live in a world with a lot of podcasts. Now, not as many as people think. I mean, because we're definitely not saturated. I don't know what the official number is now, but I know one of the stats that I've heard is that there's over 4.5 million podcasts listed on Apple, but less than 450,000 of them have produced content in the last 90 days. It's mind blowing when you think of that disparity of this is how many podcasts are in the graveyard. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh yeah.
at the same time, there is a lot of content pulling at us each and every day and just bombarding the hell out of us. Listen to me, watch me, read me, whatever. We only have so much time in our day. So more than likely, if we start listening to something that sounds like crap, it's like gone, and we're moving on to
Mm-hmm.
the next one or the
Oh
next
yeah.
reel or whatever. So you have to keep that in mind with attention spans being where they're at now. The last time I researched this, it was about a year from that, or a year back from as we sit here. 8.25 seconds is where adult attention spans were at. So, tack on another year, it's probably less than that now, because we're not getting any
Wow.
better over here.
Oh
So,
no.
so you
Not at all.
and that's why I'm so big about how you structure your podcast episodes, and why you can't have a lot of fluff, and you need to get to the heart of the matter as fast as possible. But even in doing that, you have to make sure that you sound good, and you have to make sure that you look good. You have to make sure that what you're putting in front of your listener or your viewer is going to grab their attention. Because, as I said, there's so many other things looking to grab their attention, and the attention is a sliver now. See,
Mm-hmm.
all these things matter.
Oh, I couldn't agree. Yeah. And even back to your comment about, whether the industry is saturated or not, I think to touch on influencer culture, all over social media, not everyone, I won't speak on everyone, but a lot of influencers think because they have a following and that, they're, TikTok famous or whatnot. Oh, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do this. They just assume that because people are watching their TikToks, they're going to come over and listen to all their episodes. But they're used to getting your content in a couple seconds. So
Right.
it's not going to translate over. And
Mhm.
that's where, a lot of them fall into the podcast graveyard.
Yeah. Very good point. And to go right along with that, just a following in general, whether it be social media, whether it be a big email list, whatever it is, they may not all be podcast listeners. That's just reality. So they may enjoy listening and consuming you as you've been coming to them, but now you're adding in this new layer. That doesn't mean that everyone just magically says, oh, cool, a podcast. I'll add that to the rotation as well. Most people, more than likely, you'll get some people that will cross over, but there's probably going to be people that are going to say, well, I enjoyed when you were doing your video series, or I enjoy your blogs, which feather in the cap for content repurposing right there. And that's my big thing,
about to say.
Right? Like, if you're not doing, you can maximize this podcast thing with all of these other great add-ons and keep hitting your people where they're at. And then if they do choose to listen to your podcast, great. Really, you work with brands, I work with brands, really, it's all about the connection. So whether that happens through video, audio, or the written component, I don't care. I just want to make the connection. So you tell me where you want to reach. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And once you get them into your orbit, then you can attract them and keep them there in any way, shape, or form you choose. And podcast content is extremely versatile and allows you to do that in a great way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, we've been encouraging to our a lot of our clients, if they're not on like YouTube, we push them to kind of do that. We encourage them to do that. Like, repurpose the content that you can, because you will reach different audiences. And some of them are like, oh, well, I don't really go on YouTube, or I don't really post on TikTok. But like, you're getting the content out of one recording, whether that's a video or an audio. No, if you record a video podcast, then you can repurpose it all. So why not? Why not take that extra couple minutes, post it out there, get that reach, especially if you're trying to build a brand. Why not? Or brand awareness, like, like, repurpose it. Post it.
Oh, 100%. Like, for me, when I talk to businesses, I talk to brands, the big crux of our initial conversations is that having a podcast is great. Don't get me wrong. I look at the podcast as a vehicle that gets you to the goals that you've set for your business and for your brand. And in getting to those goals and accomplishing those goals, we're going to create content that helps you reach the right people, and it checks off a lot of boxes. So in essence, it's not just about having the podcast. It's about creating a content engine that you can then utilize to make those connections and get those people into your orbit and into your funnel. So then you can take them on that journey to where they eventually will become a customer. Some people will become a customer much faster than others, but you have to get them into the game before you can actually get to that level and to that point. And your podcast can be the catalyst to make all of that happen. It's funny, as we sit here and record this live session, I just recorded an episode that will be coming out in the future in the next week or two here on Let's Blow This Up, talking about this very subject. Because this is something I'm very passionate about within Bombtrack Media, is that you're developing content that's not just about creating big waves in the podcast world, but it's also built around your goals and what you want to accomplish with your business. So you then can repurpose the crap out of it and then check out all these other boxes that maybe initiatives that you've been trying to accomplish individually. Why work harder when you can work smarter? Seems to be the overarching theme of our conversation today.
I know. It keeps coming on up. No, I couldn't agree. Even like when we first bring on clients too, and we kind of like hash out, is this brand awareness? Are you trying to sell something? Or are you trying to, bring them to a mastermind or bring them to a course? You're not going to be able to, don't start a podcast to like just sell a product, because I don't think really the strength is there. I think, you're going to build your brand awareness, and you're going to build a loyal audience that, hey, when you do decide to write a book maybe, or here's my mastermind, here's a master class, like, come to my Zoom call, it's a free class, that you're going to do much better there. And then those people that do come to those things, they might come and buy your product. They might do this. They might come to your store. They might invest in your whatever you're doing, So I think it's important to kind of hash that out too right at the beginning. So people don't have, false expectations getting started and, throughout the marathon.
Yeah. And I have to say, one of the least attractive things that I hear on a podcast is when someone kicks into sales mode and the podcast goes from storytelling and great discussion to an infomercial. And I fortunately only experienced this a couple times because I try to steer somebody away from doing that. And if I'm in a pre-recorded environment, I have no shame in stopping to say, listen, you're going to get an opportunity to plug your thing, but not now. Like we're not to that part of the show yet. But there are some people that just can't help themselves. And they go into that sales mode thinking that I have to sell this as hard as possible to get people to come to my website and make a purchase. When in reality, a lot of people are hearing that and going, well, screw this, I'm going to check out. Or hosts of the show, I've talked to hosts and be like, I don't even air those episodes because I'm not trying to put my audience through a commercial. I want them to enjoy the experience of hearing stories and strategies, not to steal a line from you guys, but that's what it's all about. That in itself becomes a sales pitch, but you don't have to be a hardcore salesperson to pull that off. That to me is where it should be.
Well, I don't even like they're coming to your podcast to get that organic and authentic, whether it's a conversation, interview, a solo episode. If they wanted to be sold something, they're going to go on Facebook, they're going to go on Instagram. If they want to see, I don't think anybody genuinely was looking to see an ad, really,
right?
Or you know what I mean, I don't think anyone is out there searching for an ad. So if they wanted to hear all that or to see all that, they're going to go on other social media platforms because they're not looking for that here. They don't want that here. And you're right. They're just going to check out. And I know I've done the same. I'm sure so many other people do the same because it's just, I feel like it's dirty almost. You just feel used. You spent an hour listening to this podcast and then they're like, oh, by the way, if you want to learn more, you have to, I don't know, buy my supplements, or if you want to, I don't know, have the perfect body, you have to do that. It's just, I feel like you can't keep up. And I just check right off.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's so many things out there that just, they seem black hat, they seem dirty pool. And I'll tell you, we get inundated with ads on a daily basis, and you look at social media almost as a whole. What can you do on social media without getting at least one ad put in your face within the first 10 seconds of being on the platform?
Exactly.
So when I come to a podcast that I love, I don't want to experience that. I want to have some fun. I want to get away from that environment for a few minutes. Now I understand. I mean, listen, I have very short ads at the beginning and end of my show. I know it's part of the experience, but if somebody peppers you throughout a 30-minute episode with nothing but ads, what does that say for the listener experience? Not much. And
exactly.
that it's very hard to retain listeners when you give them that experience. So you have to be very careful about how you utilize that. And like you said, Emily, it can feel a little at the end of the day, kind of what are we doing here? We're just, again, we're in an ad driven world, but when you can find those escapes, podcasts can be the type of environment that allow that. Even if there's ads interwoven, you still have opportunities for great conversation, for great connection, and you get a little bit of that escape to listen to something you love. Most people don't love ads.
No. But I understand. There's I feel like there's a time and a place, and you can still make it feel genuine. You don't need to make it seem like, oh, I've just strung you along this whole episode. Here you go. I think there's a difference, and people can tell. It's I feel like with authenticity, you can't really fake it that often. And I feel like people, I mean, people, that's what people are sticking around for. So you don't want them checking out.
No, and it's about building trust, right? If you pull the rug out from somebody after you've spent X amount of minutes with them, whether it was in a good way or even maybe there was sales built into that initial interaction, if you all of a sudden yank the rug out from under them and it's like, okay, well, we're not going to go any further until you put money in my hand or you sign up for this or you buy that, trust is pretty much dead at that point. And it's very hard once you shatter that trust to get somebody to come back on board. So what I love about this podcast is that I can continue to have great conversations, to keep building content, to keep putting that in front of the right people that want to consume it. And then those people then respond to me. I've had people reaching out on social media. I don't get a lot of reviews. I also don't ever ask, so I never prompt that. But I don't know. I don't know. Do you feel like reviews are kind of a dying thing on podcasts? Because I don't think I've asked it all this season. I've just kind of cut that out of what I say on the show. But overall, I feel like that's not really something people are leaning into as much as they once did. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like people aren't leaving them as much like as either they used to or they just it's it's an extra step. It's like I don't mean to like say anybody's lazy, but it's just why it's like some people just don't feel that they need to do that. Yeah. So I think with that I understand, but for smaller podcasts, I feel like or podcasts that are just starting out, I feel like it's almost important for them to get those reviews. So it feels like, that people are listening and people are appreciating it. Yes, you can see numbers, but it's almost more special for, the host to see that, oh, someone gave this episode a 5-star thumbs up, or they gave my podcast a 5-star thumbs up. Like, I appreciate that. And I think, some of our clients, like, I feel like they sometimes feel disconnected from their audience in a way because they're not getting those, those, whether it's like just a 5-star review from so-and-so from Idaho or like an actual written review. So I think they're important in some ways, but I definitely think that they're just hard to come by. So yeah, I think there's a bit of a struggle there.
Yeah, I think as easy as the process is to leave a review, it's literally sometimes having to I've done this with people. Do you have an iPhone? Because they'll sit there and they'll tell me how great, like I've had this in some of my networking groups. Oh yeah, I listened to your show last night. It was great. I was like, cool. Did you leave a review? Well, no. Do you have an iPhone? Yeah. Okay, give it to me. I pull up their Apple Podcast app and I go to the show and I go right to the review section. I'm like, type how much you liked it here, please. I'll stand here and watch. Like, yeah, we shouldn't have to go to that extent, right? But again, I don't think that level of appreciation is maybe too strong a word in this case, but just, yeah, we're impacting people, but for them to take that extra step to go into their app and write out that review, it seems like it's asking a lot. I don't know why. It's just a different mentality that I've never really fully wrapped my arms around.
Yeah, it feels like you're asking like the world.
It does
of somebody.
Right?
It's like, come on, please. But it's like, oh, we also don't want to then like beg for them.
Also
but I do agree. Like if someone's like, oh yeah, I listened to your show. Well, come on, like.
Yeah, tell the
right
world
there.
What you thought.
It's literally right there.
Yeah, and that's if you really. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I was just saying, like, if you are really enjoying the show and feeling impact, more than likely there's other people out there that are going to feel that too. But that review could be what makes them say, all right, now I'm convinced. So you taking 10 seconds to say this show is great because of XYZ, highly recommend, 5 stars. Someone may read that and be like, great. Or it's the combination of all the reviews that says, okay, this is worth my time. Mm-hmm. So if you really want to build up that community and get more people listening to the show, reviews, that's where I feel, again, I will plead ignorance on this. I don't know if it still impacts the algorithm, the more reviews you get. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about that lately. So I just sort of, again, with my not even real, this is the most I've talked about reviews, I feel, easily this season, maybe since this show went live. But either way, I guess take it or leave it. And if you're listening now, damn it, you have to go leave a review now. I mean,
yeah, now you have to.
On the spot. I'll know. If you didn't leave a review, we're coming after you.
Yeah, they don't have a choice now.
That's right.
I can't really speak to the algorithm part of it. I'm not sure how really how that works and if that does impact it. But I know it, it does impact the host, mm-hmm. It could be that one review that, they got that say, I've been listening to you from the start and I genuinely look forward to you every week. that could be the review that pushes them to continue. You know, they
Amen.
don't want to, like, they don't end up in the podcast graveyard because they don't feel that connection. Almost like the audience can feel the connection with the host, but does the host always feel the connection with the audience? So I
Very
think
true.
it's a tricky situation, I
Yeah.
think. But I mean, I definitely encourage it. Drop a review. I'm not telling anything. I'm just putting it down below.
We're looking at you, Bomb Squad. Get out there, leave that review on
Yeah.
Apple Podcasts. Let's push this forward. Emily, we're going to spend the last few minutes of our conversation here talking about agency growth. And obviously, we're both in that realm. And for those that may be checking out the podcast version of this or watching us live, maybe they have aspirations of building a podcast agency someday. So what do you think should be front of mind other than what we talked about at the top of the show, which I think is first, is building those strong relationships with your clients so they understand what they're doing and how it's going to impact their business if they do it right. But what else should someone be aware of if they want to grow a successful agency in the podcast space?
Yeah, okay. So I won't touch on client relationships, but I do stress that. I think that's
That's
extremely
number one.
important.
Yeah, we know
Yeah,
that's
that's
number
number one. It was
Through the
at the
roof.
beginning, but I'll
Yes.
move on. But yeah, it's important. I think another thing too is to kind of take off your sales hat sometimes and to, you know, like, I guess it kind of goes hand in hand with my first thing is to like kind of connect with them and not try to always feel like you're selling something. You know, with us, if we meet with a client and, you know, they come to us and they just say, you know, wow, you guys, you know, you're doing you're doing quite a bit. Like my last production agency didn't really go this far, go to these lengths. Like we really value like hearing that. You know, it's too bad that, you know, they didn't have a good experience, but I feel like we just try to kind of give the best that we can to our clients, and whether that's, you know, going the extra mile to, you know, upload to their YouTube channel or to, you know, research episode ideas, you know, I feel like just go the extra step because it'll always pay off. And like, don't always come off as a salesperson. Like I feel like my partner and I, Doug, like I feel like if we don't sense that passion is there, or, you know, that drive is there, we'll tell them, you know what, look, maybe think about this a little bit. We don't want them to jump and sign the contract because what, they're going to be out in 2 episodes. Like, what's that do for anybody? You know, we don't want to waste their time. We don't want to waste their time, but we also don't want to lead anyone to disappointment. So I think that is huge. And I also think just keeping up with like industry trends, like podcasting industry trends. I think, you know, networking and meeting other people is huge. You know, going to different podcasting events. I think, you know, you learn about different, you know, platforms or technology that are out there, and you meet with different people that are either developers or founders of all this stuff. And those connections like really help you like grow, I feel like. And you're learning about new platforms and whatnot that are coming out that are gonna, you know, help push you further and give your clients the best, you know, content and get the best editing, the best production experience. So I think those would be my top.
No, those are great. I think that having that constant communication loop, for me, that's what I've discovered. I've always been very big on communication, but when I really, really started to emphasize how I was communicating with my clients and making sure those lines were always open, and in that communication process, talking about their vision for what they want and then what makes sense with that vision, that's where the success comes, because we don't want to build something in our own vision and saying, you need to do this, this, and this. No, that's not what we're here for. That's not what we should be here for. We're here to bring guidance and help you cultivate that vision into something that's truly special and truly impactful. That requires strong communication. That requires staying on the cutting edge of technology and innovation within our industry. That involves going to events like Podcast Movement and Podfest and events that I haven't been to in a couple of years that now, as I'm putting myself out there, I'm going to have to rectify and get my ass to these events. But you have to do these things because keeping your network strong is going to give you a great it's going to give you great insight to things that you may not have considered. I know that being part of the Podcast Professionals Association, our season 3 sponsor, that's where I met Doug, which then led me to meet you. I've also met
Yes.
many other podcasting professionals that I've been able to share ideas with, and it's expanded my network even further. And I made it a point to put many of the PPA members center stage on this live stream this season, just because I knew that we could have like-minded conversations and everybody had something special to bring to the conversation. Here we are doing it again tonight.
Exactly.
Right? Like, these are things that I think will truly drive an agency forward, and doing right by your customer by making sure you fully understand exactly what they're looking for and then deliver good work. I just went through a completely awful experience on my end of things. I'm not going to go into detail about that, nor am I going to throw anybody under the bus. That's not my intention ever, but it sucked. And it did not feel good at the end of the day to get taken for a ride like that. And I honestly don't know how people can sleep at night when they do that to others. Just my take. If you're thinking about growing an agency, please don't do it that way. That's just not right.
No. Do not.
Emily,
another thing I feel
oh yeah, please, yeah, sorry.
No.
Go
I
ahead.
guess we're running out of time.
No, we still got a few minutes. Go ahead. I bought this time. We're good.
I feel like another thing that really we're in growth mode right now. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, we have just expanded crazy. I feel like in the last couple months, where it's a blessing. But like you said, like those connections and the networking and bringing more people on to your show, I feel like that they're also gonna be sharing that stuff around, they're circulating on their social media channels and whatnot. That's more exposure, and that might be exposure to an audience that isn't necessarily the same as your audience, but it might just attract other people to take an interest in this kind of stuff, which is obviously amazing.
100%. And again, you don't know whose eyes and whose ears might be on your product. And the next big opportunity that could come your way, it only takes one person to hear what you got. So make sure you're doing your part to get things spread around as much as possible. Keep making those positive connections, be a part of the communities, have good conversations. Always be looking for opportunities to grow and opportunities to learn. You'll be in a good spot, and your agency will feel the love, as will everybody within that agency, customer and employee alike.
You said it best.
Drop the mic. And all right. So Emily, this has been a blast. And I have to ask, as you're wrapping up your first podcast appearance, how do you feel things went?
I think I did pretty good. I think I got stuck a couple times, so don't mind me, but I'm hoping that I will, be on more and
keep
reach
it going.
More people.
No,
I for sure will.
Good.
Sure.
Yeah. Now that you got your feet wet, you've had your first experience. Now you can go forth, be on as many podcasts as possible. You did a great job. Perfection is unattainable and nothing we ever shoot for here on Let's Blow This Up. So thank you for bringing all of your wisdom and all of your insight. If the Bomb Squad wants to connect with you to learn more about what you do, how you help grow your agency, and how you can help through your agency grow their podcast, how do they connect with you for that?
So you can actually email me. My email is emily@storiesandstrategies.ca. I would love it if anyone wanted to reach out, even if you just had a couple questions. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. It's just Emily Page. I can have a link for it somewhere if we do that.
Oh, yeah. I
yeah.
always make it easy on the Bomb Squad. Links for the email and LinkedIn for Emily will be in the show notes, so you can easily connect with her. Highly recommend you do just that. Our friend Jim says, great discussion, Emily. My name's Jason. That's fine. Bombtrack Media works too. I learned a lot about the podcasting world. Good. Jim, we're glad we were able to serve you tonight, as we did everyone else viewing us live. And if you're checking out the audio recording, thank you very much for being here for this episode. Again, Emily, thanks a lot. It's been fun.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, Bomb Squad. So that brings to a conclusion another live stream here on Let's Blow This Up. We'll be back next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on the Bombtrack Media Facebook page, on the Bombtrack Media YouTube channel, and my personal LinkedIn page. I'll be joined by Gina Whitehouse of Whitehouse Strategy and Marketing. We're going to be talking about how she used seasons to build her podcast. She just finished up her first season, so congratulations to Gina. She's going to share her story about using her podcast to grow her brand and how she's using it to establish authority in her space. All things that I love to hear, and I hope you do too. So make sure that you're here with us next week. You can always click the bell on YouTube so you know when new content goes live and when our live streams begin as well. Please don't be a dick about this. Until our paths cross again here on Let's Blow This Up for Emily Page, my name is Jason Sircone. Until next time, stay explosive. See you next week.